Welcome to the Ask a Swim Pro show. My name is Ksebati, co-founder and CEO of My Swim Pro, and I'm here with the head coach, president of the Energy Standard Group, James Gibson. What's going on?
Hey, Faris. Yeah, very good. Thanks for having me on, especially in this time. Seems like we've all got a bit of time to sit down and have a chat, and I'm looking forward to chatting to you.
Right on. And yeah, it's a pretty crazy moment that we live in. I guess, how are you dealing with the situation enduring?
Well, you know what? We're all in this together, and it's strange. And a lot of swim coaches, a lot of head coaches, federations have been put in quite uncertain times at the minute. They're in difficult positions. Really, what's the right way? No one really knows. Just when we don't have information. And just give you an update on my personal thing. I was in Turkey. Well, 10 days ago, functioning as normal, training group as normal, full training. And then things started to change a little bit with Europe becoming more and more locked down, and Turkey was following suit. So I made a decision. It was last Monday. We were all set to carry on training, stay in Turkey, see this out with the facility that we have there. But then on Tuesday, what was a good decision on Monday was a bad decision on Tuesday because the borders were starting to close. And I made a decision to close my program last Tuesday completely. So we suspended all training operations even before the IOC made this announcement, just on health and safety of the athletes. And I made the decision to get athletes and staff back with their families and loved ones, because we do have some staff that were in Italy and they were unable to get back to us to work because of quarantine. And I was one step in front of all the stories and what I was hearing. I knew that this COVID-19 was a lot more serious than what, say, Great Britain and USA were taking it initially. And so I made my decision early to close my program. And fortunately, that looks to be the right one, because hotels and training facilities all over the world are closing. And now we're in a situation where we have one athlete that has access to a pool and a gym, and that they're the privileged ones. And I guess we're in the same boat. The thing with this, it doesn't discriminate against the elite swimmers and the masters swimmers and the novice swimmers. We're all out of the water pretty much. So we're a community all in it together.
Yep, we're all in it together. And I think it's telling that you made the decision early relative to what's been going on in whether it's the US or the UK. How difficult was that decision? And how do you, as a coach, how do you project out? You have all these athletes, there's a lot of things going on. How do you balance those decisions?
Well, Faris, it was absolutely the hardest decision I made in my life in terms of swimming. And I didn't really sleep for, 4 or 5 days, just thinking about what was the right thing to do. And because the Olympics at that point hadn't been cancelled, it just felt, when I was coming to training, I wasn't getting the best from the swimmers because they were stressed. And it was the unknown and the uncertainty, family, loved ones, stories, and it was like consistent negative messages. So we weren't even really training. I had bodies in the water, but I wouldn't say we were working or getting better. And it just hit me that it now is more time for the human. It was more to be the human side and get people home, and then they can figure it out with their federations in terms of what to do with training. And fortunately, it was all the right decisions. I didn't know it was the right decision because the training base in Turkey is now closed. So there would have been no alternative. We'd have been contacting the ambassadors to get us home. But now it's time to alleviate some stress. So none of my guys have really been training for the last sort of week and a half. And I gave them all this week off because I felt that it's the stress and the build-up of stress that takes away from what you're actually trying to achieve in the water anyway. So we weren't getting anywhere. I give them a time off, and then we will rebuild reset the goals, try and make some goals through projected planning. Is the Olympics going to be April? Is it going to be July? I think we can guess that NBC's money will have some sort of weight and probably look towards the summer of 2021. But no one really knows. So we're in this state of flux where the swimmers can't take a break, but they've got to try and, I use the word decondition as the least amount as possible. Yeah. They will decondition. They will. So I accept it. I'm not stressed about it. But the idea is to try and slow that decondition down.
Mhm. And then when the announcement came out that, 2020 to 2021, was that a relief? Like was it good, bad? I mean, how do you evaluate that emotionally?
It's a strange one because I'd say 80% of my group were doing exceptionally well. We were doing very, very well in our training cycle, and I was very confident that we're building into a fantastic year. But then it was the fact that I had sent them home before any announcements had been made, and it kind of vindicated my decision. I made the right call early, and you can't ever predict what's going to happen with these the rhetoric from the IOC was we're going to continue no matter what. Serious lack of empathy for the people that couldn't train. I don't think the bureaucrats making the decision really understood what was going on in the ground. Yep. And thankfully that someone gave them a kick up the backside and they made the right choice. It came as, it wasn't a shock that the announcement came. It wasn't really relief. It was more, okay, that is what it is. Let's now think of, that's the facts today. Now we move forward. So the way I was dealing with everything in Turkey was we were having daily briefings at 12:30. I said to the athletes, these are the facts today. We will base our decisions on what the facts are. And it might be the wrong decision tomorrow, but that's all we can do. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do moving forward now. Like, the fact is now the Olympics is cancelled. We still don't know when it's going to be. There's speculation, but right. The fact is now it's been cancelled. It could happen between January 2021 and August 2021. That's been the official line. So we need to prepare for that. Until we know otherwise, there's no point taking a big holiday or a big break. So we just got to go with what happens now or what we actually know.
Yeah. And I think, what advice do you have for coaches who really have no idea what to do? Maybe they're not training for the Olympic Games, but the nationals or sectional, state championships, regional, and like, how do you advise to communicate with your team, or just even think about the longer term approach to this?
So every coach has a different dynamic with their swimmers, and I don't like to preach to people that probably know their athletes a lot better than what I do. So I can just tell you my experience and what I've done. So in this period, I've told the staff that we're working with, we're taking our foot off the gas. This is a heavily stressful period for everyone involved. So athletes do not have access to facilities. They cannot train, which is a stress in itself. The last thing they need is a really regimented program around them that they might not be able to do. Mm-hmm. So what we're doing at Energy Standard is we are literally bombarding a platform full of information, weight training, circuit training, home training for athletes that can get pools. We've got 40, 50, we're going to get 40, 50 workouts on there so they can just choose what they might be able to do. So we're just asking, we had a period of time off for the athlete to get comfortable in their life at home, which is difficult in itself if you can't go out or do much. And then as of next week, we're asking them to do one thing a day, whether that be a gym session if they can get to the gym, a swim session if they can get to a pool, or if it's a home gym session that's controlled by our strength and conditioning coach. So it's just one thing a day, and they can pick and choose what they can do. And they're giving them a lot of ownership on this. It's purely the fact that I've got a guy in Estonia who's in quarantine. I've got Sarah Sjostrom, who's still got access to all facilities. We've got Ben and Georgia in Britain that can't go out of the house, but they can still run around the block, per se.
Yeah.
So everyone is different, and it would be wrong to put them together and try them, because that would just create more stress. So we're just asking them to do the best they can and keep in regular contact. We have a Zoom call 2-3 times a week all together. And it's just that regular communication. But for age group programs, masters programs, I'm not the professional there, so I wouldn't really like to comment on what these guys can do. And ultimately, the coach might feel like they don't know what the best course of action is, but they're more qualified to make the good judgment with their athletes.
For sure. From a focus perspective, I guess when you're doing these Zoom calls, like what are they like when you have everyone connected? I mean, on one side, the situation sucks. On another side, it's an opportunity to come together in a different way than you were used to, maybe. So, what's that dynamic been like?
Well, they're all elite swimmers, so they have a degree of attention deficit disorder. So, trying to hold a 15-person conversation and keep everyone concentrated is a challenge in itself. No, but it's quite nice. You got to find a way to keep connected and keep transparent. And it's also, guys, this is an update. This is what we know. This is what James, do we know about European Championships? Do we know about? No, we don't know anything. So it's kind of this uncertainty. We've got to be trying to find some sort of comfort in the uncertainty, and just keep everyone talking and actually allow a platform for the athletes to speak as well. The elite athletes is so important and it's that one-to-one communication, not just the Zoom calls, because some people have anxieties that others might feel that they don't have to face, so they don't want to bring it up. So we have to always keep regular communication. I try to speak to the athletes every day, one-to-one or a text message or something, even though there's not a lot I can do at the minute, but that's what my goal is anyway.
Cool. Awesome. Let's rewind and talk about ISL energy standard. So we sort of skipped over it, but for those who don't know, like how would you describe the energy standard? Like what is it? If someone's never heard of it, how does that work?
Look at that t-shirt. It's beautiful. Like that t-shirt.
Champs t-shirt. So what is energy standard and then what is the ISL?
So we're a full-time professional swimming team. We're Energy Standard Paris is our official name. We've got a training base in the south of Turkey where we run training camps majority of the year. We've been in existence since 2012, mainly Russian-Ukrainian club in 2012. I took over as head coach and director from 2016, and we've got a lot more international feel now in our program. We have 14 full-time athletes, all are professional, all are funded, all have access to elite training environment and coaching. We have a full-time staff in itself. We have two assistant coaches. Well, I don't usually use the word assistant coaches, but 2 elite coaches and a strength and conditioning coach, and 2 sort of part-time physiotherapists. So we're kind of one of the only professional clubs in the world, I'd call it. So we had been in existence for a while, and our existence was kind of as a model for the future International Swimming League, which was sort of the brainchild of Konstantin Grigorishin. And the ISL was created 10 professional clubs in itself. The first year was more athlete. The first and second year is more athletes coming in, racing for the team while they prepare for the Olympics. And then as the league progresses and more matches, we were scheduled for 27 matches, 27 meets after the Olympics, so 2020, 2021. But that's going to have to be reviewed because of the current status, and that will be reviewed. So the idea long term is that we start to create a real culture of professional clubs like Energy Standard, where the elite swimmers of the world can earn money. And each club this year can have up to 40 athletes. 10 clubs, 40 athletes, that's 400 swimmers can benefit financially from ISL in the future. So it's an exciting time. Last year we did like the first ISL season, and we won by the skin of our teeth on the final skins race. We actually did it 3 times in a row. But I was quite lucky. I knew the meet focused on male and female sprint freestylers, and when I recruited my team, I was very heavy on those. We were weak in the distance events, but to give away a few points in those to make up in the skins was more important.
Yeah, and I was at the final in Vegas. That's actually where I got this shirt. By the way, I purchased this before you guys won, so I was like trying to scope out the teams and everything. It was actually remarkable how close a lot of it was. I mean, to have it all come down to like the final moments, and then that was like, so watching it online, in the meets leading up was like pretty cool, and then to know that I would be there in Vegas, and then to see it in person, some of that actually exceeded expectation. And normally, like, I mean, I've been to a lot of big meets, so it's like, yeah, it's fast swimming, but that was like cool. So what would you think the biggest benefit from a fan perspective is if they were to like go to something like this or just live stream it?
Well, I'll be honest with you, like the actual show in the stadiums was fabulous. And we didn't quite get across onto the live stream or the television. It wasn't quite you didn't feel what people felt in the stadium. So when we had the meets in London and Naples, you got 3,000-4,000 people coming in a night, and it was full and it was loud and it was electric. And it was kind of like the show in the stadiums was, and we had people that never been to swimming before were loving it because it was so fast. The format was so quick, and we're seeing, Konstantin recognized it was one of his first things was swimming is too slow. It doesn't hold the audience's attention.
Yeah.
So when you go to World Championships or Olympics or European Championships and you sit through, 10 heats of 1,500 or 8 heats of 400 medleys, I like them events personally. I do. I'm a coach, but for a regular spectator, that makes them turn off.
Yeah.
And even heats of 50 freestyle, you get 25 heats of 50 freestyles. It's not exciting. So he recognized the need for the changing public, like the new breed, the Generation X that we've got now are addicted to the iPhones, the games consoles. Whenever they hear a ping, their eyes come off. They can't watch American football or soccer anymore because it's not fast enough. I think there's only really basketball that's holding a really strong pace now. So we needed to create something super fast and so something to hold people's attention, and that's what the ISL is. It's like a race goes and 1.5 minutes later there's another race. 1.5 minutes later there's another race. And we had a lot of negative feedback to start with from the swimming purists. Can't see the times, can't see who's who. But in reality, in the stadium, it worked sensationally. And I think, it's up to us and ISL to make sure the production is really up to par to get that message from the stadium to the screens, because we need to connect with the millions of viewers at home and not necessarily the 2,000 or 3,000 in the arena.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one fun story about that. When we were in the arena, I saw this like pack of kids. They were, teenagers, age groupers. They drove 9 hours from San Francisco down to Vegas, and because of like the timing and stuff, they only got to see like one day. But they were so pumped and so excited to drive 9 hours to a swim meet. And I think like no one would do that like a few years ago. Like maybe they'd go to Olympic trials or something, but to go to like a non, U.S. Olympic trial equivalent thing. And I think the ISL final was definitely on that level. Where do you think like what's next? Where do you see this? Mentioned 10 teams. Like what are the next things that people should keep an eye out for?
Well, it's just a little bit up in the air at the minute. Like we did plan to run a season of 27 matches from September through to April. And we were in the middle of the recruitment phase now, really, and the teams were coming on very well. But that's a little bit up in the air. Like there's been lots of, we need to just wait and see what the facts are around when the Olympics are, and be very respectful to the athletes and their federations. We don't want any clashes. Don't want any to step on people's toes and get them to commit to things they can't necessarily do. And we've got to understand that the swimming community is going to be hurting a little bit. Like there'll be athletes that lose their contracts at the end of this year. And, there's also a few people might be worried how they can support themselves to the Olympics. And I think ISL can plug that gap very well. Like I said, we can fund 400 athletes in some way. There's definitely a scope to do something. Even some ideas I read on an email this morning, some sort of reality swim meet with reality TV going around, and there's so much. There's a lot of opportunity because it's a blank sheet of paper, but it's a blank sheet of paper for all sports. For American football, is it fun to go to play in front of no crowd for American football? 90,000 seat a stadium empty. I don't think that format works, but if with the ISL format, we don't necessarily need 100,000 spectators to make the show. So for American football and soccer, the show is more the crowd nowadays than the actual quality of the entertainment. So we have an opportunity, and we got. Sorry, my phone's pinged. we've got an opportunity, and there's a lot of people working very hard, clever people, to try and work out what's the best way to position us, especially because the athletes will get ready for Tokyo next year. We respect that, and that's going to be a priority for them. But we're going to fit the ISL in somewhere very appropriate and help the swimming community.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, a lot in the up in the air, but there's a lot of smart people working and passionate about taking it to the next level, given the changing circumstances. One final thing I want to give the fans a taste of, maybe give us a behind the scenes look when things were more normal at your training group. So you have like the who's who of swimming for the most part at your pool in the facility. I mean, we're like the big names like Soistrom, who you mentioned, Chad Leclos, Manadou, right? Like these are the heavy hitters. What's it like to have some of the best athletes that the sport of swimming has ever seen, like training at the same time? How do you manage that, and what's that like?
It's not. It's. I don't really call it a job. It's a pleasure. You know.
Yeah.
I get to wake up every morning and go and work with Chad Leclos, who's a little crazy and just an all-round fantastic guy who just pulls up the energy of everyone else. It's a real privilege, honestly, for me. I'm one of the most privileged swimming coaches in the world to get to work with this level of athlete, and the learning that takes place for me is unbelievable. I had Gennady Cheretsky was over with me last week, the coach of Alexander Popov, and he come along to the session just to watch, and he was like, so lucky that you get to learn from these athletes. And I've done all my coaching qualifications. I've done what I need to do. But you really learn from working with different athletes from different backgrounds. And Chad's from Durban in South Africa. He's got Bert Leclos as his father, who's amazing, and he's a crazy guy. You've also got guys from Eastern Ukraine and Russia that come into the program, very different lifestyles. Florent Manadou, Olympic champion from Paris, from south of France, took 3 years off, and then got to rebuild in Pernell Bloom, Olympic champion. You learn so much from these swimmers, and just from talking to them, and they actually make me better every day. I have fantastic staff that I work with. I have an incredible dryland coach, Marco Corso, and Tom Russian, who supports me on the pool side. But you know, it's a privilege. It's an infectious working environment, actually. When sometimes they get sick of racing each other at certain times, but it's just how you structure the training.
No, it's incredible. And just seeing whether it's on Instagram, whether you're posting it or what some of the athletes are posting, like I imagine for myself as a swimming fan and everyone in the world who's a swimming fan, they know anything about swimming. They're like salivating by these posts just to see like, wow, that's so cool. They did that specific drill or they raced. Like I can only imagine how fast they're going in workout together to race each other. So I think that's really cool. And it's the Gloria Arena, correct?
Yeah, Gloria Sport Arena in South Turkey. Unfortunately, they just closed just due to the political situation, not political, the COVID-19 situation. But as soon as they reopen, we'll be there. We'll be back there. And as soon as this has all settled down, you know, like at the minute, it's important to be at home. Everyone that stays at home doesn't take a bed in hospital for someone that might need it. And I truly believe that. And my team and everyone around me are supporting the messages of the government. And I think the swimming community is smart, and that's all. That's all what I've seen. And in fact, I'm a little bit sick to death of watching home workouts this on Instagram. It's been saturated now. So
a lot of material. A lot of material out there, but we look forward to when you guys can return, and I'm with you 100%. Stay home, stay safe, worry about your health, take care of yourself. We'll recalibrate as we learn more information, but in the meantime, that's not the most important thing in the world. Your health and safety of yourself and those around you is definitely more important. So awesome, and thank you again for joining me from the UK for the Ask a Swim Pro show. Check out Energy Standard. We'll link it in the description, but you can learn more about all these guys and what they're up to in the description. But thanks again, James, and we wish you the best and stay safe.
Thanks, Faris. Thank you very much.